I said, where do you want my attention to be? I said, because I can either continue to create what I think is the best escape room business in the world, or we can diverse slightly and I can look at VR and I can look at something else. I said, but like, we've only got so much resource.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros Podcast, where professionals in the attractions business can get tips, tools, and even a bit of inspiration.
Join us as we tackle some of the most important topics facing the attractions industry today and gain insights from some of the top leaders, creators, and influencers from the exciting world of theme parks, zoos, museums, aquariums, and family entertainment centers.
Because this show is created by Attraction Pros for Attraction Pros. I am Josh Liebman, Director of Business Development for Amusement Advantage. I help attractions understand and improve their guest experience.
And I'm Matt Heller, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting. I help leaders lead and work with attractions to increase employee engagement and retention.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and enjoy the leading resource for attractions industry professionals, the Attraction Pros Podcast.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm great, Josh. How are you?
You know, I'm doing well. Doing well for the most part. You know, at the time of this recording here, we're still very much in our quarantine, in our lockdown, and it's making me think it would be really nice. I'm just watching you laugh here.
I think I know where you're going with this, but
you want to take it?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. It would be nice if we could figure out a way to escape.
Yes. If there were just some clues, if there was something lying on my desk and I could say this, and I turn it over and there's a code on there that I could use to escape out of the room, that would be awesome.
If only this was as simple as a complex series of puzzles that we had the opportunity to get out of this quarantine and isolation. But, you know, in the meantime, I would say let's do a great podcast interview with someone who knows a little bit about escaping.
Which is Simon Davison, who's the founder and CEO of Escapology, or Escapology, depending on which side of the pond you're on. And he has some really fascinating insights, obviously, into the world of escape rooms. And, you know, one of the things that I'm really curious about is how they come up with those puzzles, right? Because you and I have both been in escape rooms. We've been in some together. We've, you know, experienced them in different ways, but, you know, all the different details and all the different things that have to go into actually creating a series of puzzles that ultimately lead to being able to get out. I think that's fascinating, and I can't wait to talk to him about it.
The whole complex and dynamics of it is a very fascinating conversation, and being able to learn not only how those are created, but how they gear the specific puzzles towards specific audiences and wanting to make sure that they can serve a diverse group of people. And, you know, they've definitely got the formula down. Escapology is an amazing franchise organization with 70 plus locations. They've been growing substantially over the last several years. And, you know, this is one of the few types of attractions that feeds quite nicely into everything with social distancing and, you know, kind of the opposite of, you know, a crowded shared experience, because it is a very private experience. It is still very much an attraction. It is still very much a social gathering of friends or family members, but it bypasses a lot of the, I would say, logistics that our industry is going to be battling for a substantial amount of time. And they're very much at the forefront of providing a clean, safe, private experience.
Well, and one of the key things there is the private experience, right? Because so many people that we've talked to and so many venues that we're talking about are about gathering thousands of people together. And maybe it's in a pretty enclosed area, you know, like a stadium, I think about, or, you know, a theater, or, you know, you're sitting next to a stranger on a roller coaster. But they're really about, you know, bringing some families together, people that probably are already quarantined together anyway, and putting them through this experience where they can have a little fun. You know, I'm also interested, he talks a little bit about, you know, experimenting with doing these things online, you know, and creating these kind of experiences. So I'm really interested to hear kind of where that's going for him as well.
Absolutely. So I'd say with that said, let's get to this really intriguing conversation with Simon.
Let's escape this intro and get into the actual interview.
Simon Davison, founder and CEO of Escapology. Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We're so glad you're here with us today. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, boys. It's nice to have something quite exciting to do while we're all locked down. So I'm looking forward to it. Pleasure.
Exactly. We need that human to human connection in whatever way we can. So thankfully we have this technological capability to be able to stay together with people during these times.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we've been using it a lot at work and with family as well. So, but you're right. It's we might be locked down, but we can stay connected.
Exactly. So Simon, I feel like we've got a lot of ground to cover here, and I'm really excited for this chat today. Can you give us just a quick intro into Escapology, maybe for those who aren't necessarily as familiar with it? I'm just really curious, and we want to talk about kind of how this concept came about over the last several years.
From our perspective, I mean, I remember getting calls off my brother, maybe, what are we now, 2014, we kind of got going. We've been in it longer than I remember, but I guess it must have been about 2013, even as early as 2012. My brother, we had this mutual friend, another Simon as it happens, and he kept going on about being locked up, and it was a new business idea. And hey, my brother's called Paul, by the way. He said, "Hey, Paul and Si, like it's right up your alley." And, there's all this like being locked in a room. I thought, no, that ain't for me. That's just not my, a bit claustrophobic anyway. So I thought, no, I'll just stick to my day job, thanks. Anyway, so eventually the escape room concept came to London, because originally my friend Simon was living in Thailand, and it was his son that was involved in this locked in a room thing. But anyway, one emerged in London. We all met in London, and we all kind of played what was an escape room. And when I realised I actually could get out of the room and I wasn't locked in, and all the rest of it, it kind of clicked, and we started the business, and it was really down to we love the name Escapology, or Escapology as they pronounce it in America. I'll do both, I'm sure. I'll flip between the two. And I was asked to be the investor, because I already have like an events business and a training business looking after car companies, and I've been doing that marketing and training events business for years and years. So it's kind of up our alley. We thought, oh, this is like an event that goes on every day. How good would that be? We wouldn't have to pitch every day for a new job with Volkswagen or Mercedes or whoever. So I went online and I found escapology.com. Now, when I got the .com, I decided, right, we're in. I love the name, but I'm not sure about the business. I played it and I kind of liked it. I wasn't in love with it yet, but I thought, if we're going to do it, let's get the best name. And when I got the best name, escapology.com, then it kind of started rolling from there. So that's how it all kicked off.
So that's kind of funny, and that's a story I've heard of a number of different companies of how they got their name, was that the domain name was available. I think Dropbox has a similar story too, that Drew Houston found that that this name was available, and the name, whether it's Escapology or Escapology, if you pronounce it the British way or the American name, I interpret that as, the study of escaping. So kind of curious of breaking that down, of how that was determined, or what clicked that was the right name, that was the best name.
I don't know, it's a good feel, I suppose. I mean, escapology, the art of escape, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the definition is in the dictionary, but it just sums up what the experience is. You're escaping from whatever, but you are literally escaping once you're in the room as well. So it's I thought it was a bit of a no-brainer. I'm not sure who actually came up with the name Escapology, but I thought, yeah, that's it. That's definitely it. And as I said, I just kind of went, and we got my brother, I've got escapology.us, escapology.whatever. And I thought, well, you got to be .com. It's the only way to go. And I looked, and it was a few grand. I mean, I'm sure it would be worth a hell of a lot more these days with the escape room business booming as it is. But nevertheless, it was a bit of a punt at the time. And when I got it, I rang up and I said, right, I'm in. We've got the best name, got the best domain. I mean, the next thing was the trademarks and all the rest of it, and that made the domain name look very cheap, I have to say. But it's, but you know, I just think it sums up what we do. It's the art of escape, isn't it? You're being locked in a room, and we're asking you, you know, the whole concept, the whole objective is to get out, is to escape. So yeah, no, it was once we got the perfect name, I was sort of super motivated to get it all going at that point.
Very cool. So Simon, can you kind of walk us through a little bit about the process to put together a room or a game? You know, there's so many little details that you have to think about, and I would imagine somebody with some real creativity has to be involved in that process to figure out, okay, we're going to do this, and hopefully they're going to get there by these other clues. So could you kind of walk us through that process a little bit?
I could, but you said we've only got an hour, right?
The Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
So we kind of inherited the first couple of games when we kind of partnered with our old friend Simon and his son, and he came up with a couple of good games that we still have in some of the rooms now. And these days, it's me that leads the creative side, along with my daughter Poppy. She's like really creative, and she has a little bit more time on her hands to go and research what other people are doing. And really, I could quite easily come up with a concept for a new game in 10 minutes, and I could probably have it written out in half an hour, and it would be a pretty cool start to a game. But then to get it from there, like over the line to open it, there's just so many people involved in that process. You know, you got people that create. Well, you got to create the script for a start, which I kind of tend to do. Poppy, my daughter, helps me with that. And then you've got to get the video guy to do the video. You've got to get the voiceover people organised. You've got to build all the clues. I mean, to come up with the puzzles and what we're going to solve. Is it going to be physical? Is it going to be digital? Is it going to be tech? Is it going to be whatever? To come up with the idea, you can rattle them out really quite quickly. But then to turn that into a cohesive game that you can. You know, that you can go and play. And there must be, I mean, I remember doing literally a spreadsheet with all the people that are involved. There's 30, 40 people that are involved. Everything from your woodworkers to your people doing your video, the sound, you know, we've got a 1 hour soundtrack that creates the ambience at the back, and they're all custom, you know, we don't just download 1 hour's worth of like spooky sound. We create that, you know, there's a composer, my son's made some, but I've had 2 or 3 people, 4 people, 5 people springing to mind that have helped with things like that. Just so many, and the graphic artists, the digital artists, the little puzzles. The TV will start moving. It'll look like a portrait, and then it'll come to life. And there's so many elements from the beginning to the end. It's kind of crazy. I mean, the quickest you'll ever create one when we're doing our original ones. Yeah, you might create one in 4 to 6 weeks if it's a real basic game, but like a complicated Scooby-Doo kind of game, or a Mansion Murder, or a 7 Deadly Sins, some of our later games, they can be 6 months easily from start to finish. Because you'll have an idea of a puzzle, and you know we've got a factory where a lot of this stuff is made, as well as third-party suppliers that support us. But they'll make something, they'll bring it to the office. What about this? Oh no, I want it a bit more like. We need to change it around a bit. So that prototype, you know, you make a few prototypes for each of the puzzles before you can actually make them go live. So it is a process. I mean, it's a load of fun, but it's not easy. There's a lot of talent and a lot of people involved.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And, you know, you mentioned, Scooby-Doo there, you know, a minute or so ago, and, you know, kind of curious because some of the games are incorporated with intellectual property in it, and you know many of them are very much built in-house. How important is that aspect of bringing IP in? You know, because if you look at the larger theme parks, Universal opening a Harry Potter attraction is going to be way more popular than if they say, hey, here's this wizard story, we created. Do you find the same thing, or is it almost the opposite, that people want to be in new stories that are being developed by Escapology?
Well, I think the same applies. If you go to, like you say, Universal Studios, you've got the chance of doing a Harry Potter ride rather than Dueling Dragons, it used to be called, isn't it? I think I don't know if that's the same ride, but it just adds weight to it. Like when we were courting Warner Brothers for the whole Scooby-Doo thing, I was kind of creating a spooky cast. Well, my daughter, she led this one very much, with me kind of pitching in every now and again, because I actually do love Scooby-Doo.
We can tell.
we were, yeah, and I don't know, I didn't wear this because of the interview. It was on wardrobe and there, and I put it on. Oh. Anyway, but it just adds. So we were creating this spooky castle adventure. And I thought, well, if we don't sign the contract, it's a great game anyway, and if I sign the contract, then we can actually put the characters in, and then it becomes Scooby-Doo. And for sure, as soon as we opened it, it's our most popular game. It's a brand, it's a brand, but but the IP, you're talking about the IP, everything we do, we own all the IP. I know that's like an IP that we're in partnership, and we obviously don't own Scooby-Doo, but we kind of own the escape room Scooby-Doo, and it is a world exclusive that we have with them, as long as there's a few things that we have to do along the journey. But owning that IP, like the 1 hour soundtrack that goes behind every game that we've got, we need to own all that. We're a franchise model, and I don't want to be, I get offered so many games, and it would be so much easier and cheaper if we just said, right, we'll take that game off, the escape room game building company and roll it out. But I don't want, if you go and play a game at Escapology, you have to play a game at Escapology. I don't want you going down the road and playing it at, mum and pop's back, like escape room, and you play the same thing. So all the IP, really important that we kind of manage and own all that. They probably refer more to like your Warner Brothers and things like that. It just adds weight, but like in 5 years' time, if they don't renew, then I'll still have a spooky castle escape room. I'll just rebrand it all. I'll just take all the characters out, and I'll put, I can come up with characters in a heartbeat. We'll just have a few other dodgy, weird villains in there, and before you know it, we'll still have this sort of, just family-friendly version of a spooky castle adventure. So it definitely did, but it adds weight without a shadow of a doubt, and I think it adds credibility to the fact that we are a bit of a global brand. If somebody like Warner Brothers has had a real good look at your business and decides that they want to be part of it, and if they're going to get into the escape room niche, whatever you want to call it, and they kind of go with us, then it's a big tick of confidence, for anybody that wants to come and play the game, or any franchise, somebody that's thinking about going into escape rooms. What would you rather do? Start your own, or start one where you can have a Scooby-Doo game? It's a no-brainer, really, and it kind of, so yeah, it adds great credence and credibility to what we do. We've got another big one that I can't tell you yet, but it's we signed the contract and everything, and then COVID-19 comes along, and tell everybody anyway. So we're designing something else. So there's and another one thinking about it, but there you go. Can't tell you yet, but maybe by March the 12th, you'll be able to slip it in. What he was talking about was.
Here's what it was. Yeah, Simon, I appreciate that, and we can certainly, if you can share that, we'll be happy to put that in as well. But I want to go back just for a second, because you were talking about story, and so many theme park designers talk about the importance of story, and you get the opportunity to create a story that people are going to be a part of. And when you talk about virtual reality and live action based actors that are working with people as part of telling the story, you've got people in there living through the story. And I'm curious, when it comes to writing that story, do you think about your guests as characters in the story? Are they, part of that thought process, or does it, I guess I'm asking, who comes first? Is it the guest, or is it the magic tricks, or is it the outcome? I'm just curious about that process.
Well, it's kind of a blend, isn't it? But for sure, you got to put yourselves. When you're coming up with a concept, you've got to put yourselves in the shoes of the people who are going to play the game, and and they are characters. You go back to our first game, Cuban Crisis. You are Jerry Droller. You are an FBI agent, and that's who you play the game as. So it's 100%. You put yourself in the. It's got to be you've got to feel like you're immersed in that experience, and you've got to feel like that it is a real challenge that you're trying to solve. And you've got to, if you go, like my background it's like learning and development, marketing and all that kind of thing, and there's all the different learning styles, and some people learn by risk, some people get excited by doing things rather than listening or presenting. And you kind of have to put all of that into the mix. You know, like it's, like I get somebody that'll say, oh, like, I hate it when things are just lying around the room. So you might hate it, but the kids love it. You know, like, it's, oh, you know, Dad, I found a jigsaw puzzle behind the, you know, behind the whatever. Like, it's, you've got to put things in the room that appeal to everybody, like a broad, you know, section of demographic, or like the type of person that people are. So you have to factor that in when you're designing the game. And so you're kind of right. You come up with the puzzles, and then you right, go back to, have we kept them happy? Have we kept them happy? Have we got all of the different components in this game? And it's like another example is crosswords. Like, there's a guy that does like a blog, and there's loads of escape room fanatics follow what he says, and it's really interesting. Got a real professional book, but he hates crosswords. So, like, oh, you know, we'll put a crossword in one of our games. Can't remember which one it is. And I shouldn't give the game away, should I? No, I hate these crosswords. I said, no, you do. What about the guy that sits at home all the time doing crosswords, and he rocks up because he's been bullied into it by his 14-year-old daughter, and he rocks up and there's a crossword. Oh, crossword. Let me at it. You know, so you got to try and put things in that appeal to all the different types of people. And for sure, you're not going to. Every puzzle isn't going to appeal to everyone, but you certainly have to be in the shoes of the players as you're writing the game, without a question.
And that's an interesting dynamic of it too, that there's, you know, the different variety of puzzles based off of what is going to appeal to a different variety of people. And, you know, I feel like that goes so far beyond general forms of market research and demographic studies, and kind of curious how you learn, or how you know, okay, this specific game needs to have these particular puzzles in it because it's going to resonate the most with these guests, but also add the element of challenge that all this together sounds like a puzzle itself, of actually putting together the right game for the right people.
I mean, you know, you can study it as much as you like, and I suppose, you know, when I was representing the car companies, you roll these ideas out a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for, or what's the phrase I'm looking for? I mean, you kind of have to. You basically have to make whatever content you're creating relevant for a broad audience, and you've got to kind of factor that in, and you don't want. You know, everybody was screaming, I want a kiddies game, like my franchise, I want a kids game, I want a kids game. And, well, you know, it's a bit like opening a vegetarian restaurant. You know, like if you open you might as well have did you have a restaurant where you kind of cater for everyone, but you've got a really good vegetarian section of the menu, or do you open just a vegetarian restaurant? You know, there's kind of merit in both, depending on what you're trying to do. But I always try to make sure that a game, even Scooby-Doo, that's a bit kind of more kid-oriented, it's still got some challenging stuff in there for the parents. For the kids are quite often more clever than the parents, to be honest. But you know, you just have to have a variety of different challenges as you're working your way through the game to appeal to everybody. And I think it's partly engineered, but I feel like the engineered part of it is just checking that you've ticked all those boxes, because really it's a very creative process. And the reason I kind of like it more than being in the car industry is, like, if product launches were car launches were what we were typically involved with, whether it was a marketing or a training event. And cars all are. Like, I'm trying to think of one that hasn't got 4 wheels, or hasn't got a steering wheel, or hasn't got an engine, or hasn't got a trunk. Whereas an escape room, yeah, you're kind of constrained by a physical size that you can put it all in, but otherwise, like, the shackles are off. You can come up with whatever you want. Oh, spaceship, you know, submarine, let's do a submarine, let's do an airplane, let's do a whatever, let's do a spooky mansion, you know, in 300 square feet. You can do all of that with an escape room. So it's a very imaginary, creative process. But once you've created the dream or the idea, if you like, you've got to go back and just sense check that. Well, are we actually appealing to everybody here, or have we disappeared up a bit of a dark creative alley that only satisfies certain types of people, and then it won't be as popular as if you just go back and just weave in a few of those jigsaw pieces hidden behind a a photo frame to keep, just some quick wins for people as they're playing the game. So it's a fun process without a doubt, but it's partly creative, but you've got to just make sure you're ticking all those boxes as well before you kind of go live.
And I would imagine, Simon, that there's a balance, because you want it to be challenging so that people enjoy it and they get something out of it, but you also want them to be able to get out of the escape room, right? So it can't be too challenging, but you don't want it to be too simple either. So how do you kind of balance that?
That's a tricky one. Some games are harder than others. It's just kind of inevitable. But as the industry evolves and you get the enthusiasts, and in 2015 when we were telling people what an escape room is, we had to describe it all. And now, like, I don't know, probably 7, 8, 9 out of 10 people know exactly what you're talking about straight away. You just got to be careful not to keep creating games that are getting more and more difficult all the time, because not everybody that comes is experienced. I'm not sure exactly what percentage of the order, but more statistics than you can shake a stick at. But it's a very high percentage of people it's their very first escape room, and especially with a lot of our franchises that are cropping up in smaller towns. So you've just got to make sure that you don't create something that's impossible. I know one of our competitors created this room, and only 1% of people escaped. Well, that's exciting. Where's the incentive there? That to me is like 99% of the people are going to be disappointed. But those rooms are kind of more to do with your out and out enthusiasts, if you like, that are doing some groups where have done 100 or more rooms. And I'm sure they love the challenge, but the general audience that you get isn't them. It's people that have done 1 or 2 or none or half a dozen at the most, and you've just got to make sure that it's kind of fun. And but they do vary in difficulty, and you normally create the game almost without that in mind, and then when you've kind of got it done, we test every puzzle we just create stuff on PowerPoint, or just pretend that's a coffin that's going to open. Well, you just open that piece of paper and then do it. So we kind of test it all out, and we time it a little bit as we I'm saying that sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you've got a good feeling that you know how long something's going to last, but more often than not, we'll go through that process and you'll get a flavour of how difficult something's going to be. You might, hang on, we need to rein that in, or you might need to add another little extra bit in there. So it goes through like a big testing process. And like Scooby-Doo, we took 3 puzzles out right at the end. It's just too hard. Hang on, this is supposed to be a family-friendly game, and we got these 3 puzzles, but we'll be able to wheel them out in another game. So it's not like you lose them. They were still great puzzles, but it's just, as I say, right just before we went live, we did it and thought, hang on, our family-friendly Scooby-Doo game is suddenly the hardest one that we've got. So you just have to make those adjustments just before going live. They do vary, but they don't, I suppose the hardest game should be beatable, if that's the right word, by a new team of sort of 4 or 5, 6, like a family of 4 or 5, if you like, should be able to get out of the hardest game, having never played an escape room in their lives. As long, they might need a little bit of guidance in the beginning to work out. Have you played escape rooms, boys? I never asked.
Yes.
Yeah. So you remember that first time? Like, what on earth's all this about? Like, there's stuff everywhere. What's my objective? I'm all right, we do like a briefing video, and escape rooms. The whole idea is a little bit more popular these days. But it's, you don't want to make it impossible. It's hard. They're not easy, are they? You've played some yourselves. They're difficult, and they're meant to be difficult. And, we like people getting out in 59 minutes, 59 seconds, don't we? But so I don't know. It does vary, but you don't want to make them too easy, and you don't want to make them impossible either.
So along kind of a similar element of what you're talking about here about, there's some people, much of your business are people who are doing this for the first time. You said several people come in, they've done, 100+ escape rooms. One critical element of just visitor attractions in general is the repeatability factor of being able to come back and do the experience again. And this seems, at least on the surface level, that it would be a little bit of a larger hurdle for escape rooms, unless you're continually developing new games. But curious how you avoid the, oh, I've been there, done that, and I don't need to do it again type of factor with it?
Well, there's an interesting one, because I am blessed with the worst memory on the planet. And the other day we're trialing out a game that you can play online, like we are now. But you know, we've got a game master. It's like the whole COVID-19, we're not allowed to go to work gag. You know, like, well, how are we going to make any money then? So we're trialing this. Let's try the game out online. Got all my team together. One of them was there with a camera and walking around the room, but it actually worked really well. And we played Cuban Crisis, which I must have played 40 times, and I still haven't got a clue what's coming up. I have a vague idea. Oh, I know those blocks go together, but I have to get the C, the U, and the B before I realise it's going to spell Cuba. You know what I mean? And I'm, you know, not see. But I mean, everyone in like me. I mean, my daughter remembers everything straight away, so that concept's never going to work for Poppy. I mean, to answer your question, you can't really. It's like watching a film. I mean, if you watch a film once, can you watch it again? You know, actually, it's going back to my daughter Poppy. She'd watch the same film 15 times. And I know she knows exactly what's coming and enjoys it every time. And if I've seen it once, if I leave it 3 weeks, I can watch it again, and I haven't a clue what's going to happen. So it's like for the first time. So again, everybody's like a little bit different. But I don't consider escape games as something that you can do again. You know, I mean, certainly not within a year or two. I think you have to refresh the game. I mean, we haven't got Cuban Crisis in Orlando anymore. We haven't got Shanghai. We haven't got Arizona Shootout. They've been replaced, you know, with 7 Deadly Sins and Mansion Murder and Scooby-Doo and a few others. It's and obviously it depends on what size your audience is. If you've got 50 million visitors a year coming in, then you can kind of keep the same thing in there forevermore. Not only 50 million visitors this year, is there? But you know, you just need to refresh the content. It's like the cinema. You know, you don't go and watch the same film twice at the cinema, is it? But they kind of keep refreshing the content, and I feel that's what we need to do. And kind of because of that, you got to make sure that you don't over-engineer your games as well. You don't overproduce them, because you know, I know I've not played it, and I should really, but there's a fantastic game up in Louisiana, apparently. And it's like, they've spent over $1 million building this game. And I think, well, where's the return? It's not a sort of business. That's a passion. It's going to be fantastic. I mean, there's like a rat, a hamster wheel that you can run in, and you generate electricity, apparently. It's full size, massive. Wow. Well, that's fabulous. You know, it's kind of great value for anybody that goes there, but it's not sustainable. You're not going to, it's kind of, there's not that many people live where it is, and you need to get a return. So it's a bit of a temporary concept, that, because you do need to. I mean, there's some companies talking about like being able to change the puzzles up and all the rest of it. But I mean, if you go into an environment, half the fun is the environment. You know, you go into 7 Deadly Sins and it's a churchyard, and then I'm going to tell you. I mean, you obviously kind of go into a church. That bit's pretty obvious because there's a bit of a church door there. But you don't. That's it's going to be like half the excitement. The fact that you're in this sinister, spooky, you know, fog coming out and music that's making it, you know, lightning going off outside. That's all a wee bit scary and what have you. And that's kind of so like, cause I'm talking about like some of the escape room companies talking about switching up the puzzle so it can be played again by the same audience. But I kind of think you're going to lose that element of surprise. So it's you know, it's just about the size of the audience that you have. I mean, only we average like 4 and a bit players per game. You know, so it's going to take a long while before the whole of Orlando or the whole of wherever, Myrtle Beach even, have played all of your games. And there's a big audience to have a bit of a go at first, and then just make sure that you refresh the content. Try and put a new game or 2 in every year if you're in a busy town. And if you're in a smaller town, you might have to refresh them a little bit more often. So yeah,
And Simon, you were talking about that place in Louisiana that, you know, was so costly to create. And I know part of your model is franchising. So a big part of what you want to do is create models that can kind of work in different areas. So I'm curious, what are some of the challenges or even opportunities with that franchising model that has helped you grow to where you are now?
Well, I think having somebody creating all the games for the franchisees is the biggest advantage, because it's a very long-winded, complicated, expensive process, you know, and we kind of typically charge a 6% fee on their gross royal, their kind of gross income. And I've not done the maths for a while, but I would think even with, well over 50 franchises open, 4 of our own venues and all the rest of it, I bet our costs are well over 6% just to create the game. In fact, I know for a fact they are. So they get that for nothing. It's a small game fee that they have to pay when they put a new game in. But have that process all done for them, so they basically just have to pay for the end result. I mean, they still have to build the game, but they don't have to go through that, that design and development process that takes forever, and you have to have a really good team to do it, to come up with good games. And I'm just kind of lucky that my head works in such a way that I can kind of come up with an initial concept and a bit of a challenging journey for people. And my background obviously helps, but it's kind of the same, the same tools, if you like, that have helped build my other business. And it's just kind of lucky at being able to work all that out. But that's kind of what the franchises are buying into, like we're taking care of the future for them. Just it makes life really easy, and we create all the documentation, all the CAD drawings, all the. If you saw our master game guides, they're kind of this thick of absolutely every detail, what you need to buy, how you need to build it. Every detail is mapped out, to the nth degree. And that's, that then is the marketing support, training, all our training's online. There's a lot of other things as well. But I mean, the key thing is the games, they're just getting games that we know works.
And you guys have just been exploding over the last few years or so in terms of number of franchises. I think is it into the 70s now or so?
Yeah, there's 50. I lose count. There's none open at the moment. That's not very good, is it? But it's there's 56 or 57 that are actually open. And yeah, we're kind of in the mid 70s somewhere, because there's a few that are in build, and some of the ones that have just signed are kind of looking for spaces and what have you. But yeah, it is exciting. But I do think we have got a really good model, and it does make life easy if you look at it. Like, and these licensed IP games, they're going to make it's like a bit of a no-brainer, honestly. I mean, I can just show anybody the maths and the training and all the rest of it just to get some consistency. It's a bit knowing what I know now would have been a hell of a lot easier if I could have just bought into a franchise model and had 10 of my own venues and just give my 6% to someone else to get all the stuff that I know that is really hard. I mean, I love being in the position we're in, a bit of a control freak, as I think a lot of people can be in my world, my position or whatever. And I like having that element of control over everything. But we have a very good, solid model. As I say, we've got the marketing covered, we've got the training covered, we've got the design of the games covered, we've got, we support people when they're having a bit of a bumpy ride. We've got the right. I think we've just got the right manner to deal with all the different kind. And I've got global experience as well, because my other business, I've done events kind of all over the place. So I kind of do understand. I've been lucky enough to work with nearly every different culture, because when we were doing car launches for General Motors or whatever, we would host like the global event. So we were creating a training program, for example, for the launch of a new General Motors car. We would have that translated into every different language. We would host a master launch event where everybody from all the different countries would come to, and we kind of do what would we call it, local markets adjustments and then whatever, so it would work in their local market. So that kind of helps understanding that broader. I mean, most of our businesses in America, I won't tell a lie, but as it branches out, I think more of that past experience will reap its benefit. And we've already just signed a master franchise in Spain, like literally since all COVID-19 kicked off as well. So that it's nice that they're remaining confident. We've got one in United Arab Emirates. We've got one down there, Chile, Canada. It's hopefully it's just the tip of the iceberg, but I don't know, because there's escape rooms everywhere these days. But we don't appear to be slowing down at all. So that's this last 6 weeks we have, but up until that it was we were kind of still flying along. So.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. And you mentioned, the expansion even, in the COVID-19 crisis. And, one of the advantages that escape rooms have, in terms of, there being heightened sanitation concerns, is that it is designed to be a less crowded experience in general compared to other types of shared experiences or other types of attraction. What is kind of brewing right now, while your locations are closed, while you've got this downtime, to make sure that this advantage continues to be strengthened?
I think you're right. I think we are lucky. I mean, we've always run a private experience, and our kind of biggest competitors typically share the rooms. And I've never really liked that. I thought they actually, a good one, a good escape room is a good business, and it makes good money. And yeah, you can kind of push that if you like by, if you've got a room that takes 8 people, just let 8 strangers get in there. But I've never really liked that. I've always wanted to, if you're in it for the long term, it has to be like a quality experience, and it has to be a private and personal experience. I feel like it's always been a group of friends or a family or work colleagues or whatever. And I think it's always been about, like, whoever you go in the room with is the people that you choose to go in the room with, rather than somebody else choosing that for you. And I think this is now going to play into our hands. I mean, I pulled my office staff before we closed the venue in Orlando, because, the office had, I don't know, 15 people or whatever. And I said, let's just all work from home. Everybody's got computers and, Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever. And we're all, so all of the general office functions can kind of work with us all being remote. But I didn't want everybody being like being kind of forced to be on top of each other. But the venue, with it being a private experience, we would open the door, a bit more expensive with air conditioning, trying to keep it cooler, but you wouldn't have to touch the door on the way in. Everything's like fully disinfected and cleaned in the rooms. We're kind of famous for being a clean, I quite openly say that I've played games at other places that are better than ours. But I've never been to venues that are better than ours. You can wipe your finger across the window pane and it's clean. It's spotlessly clean. The staff are always super friendly, always super helpful. If you had a problem, we'll refund you. It's just great customer service. But it's always been a very clean and a very well presented environment. And it's always been private. So to me, like, if there's me and their wife and the 2 kids and we're at home and we want to do something, and we're kind of half locked down and Disney's closed, let's go to Escapology. Because, like, you'll set off from house in your car, 4 of you in your car, you get there. We weren't taking any cash transactions, so there's no reason to, for anything to change hands. Our game master would say, there's your game there, in you'd go, you'd watch the briefing. I mean, we sometimes, prior to COVID-19, we would go in the room and kind of enhance a couple of the points that were made during a video briefing. But since COVID-19, say, let the video do the job that it's meant to do, and it'll give the briefing of what you've meant to do. And if there's a bit of, what do I do? You can always communicate with the two-way communication system from the, mission control into the game room. So if someone's confused, you can enlighten them. But basically, you set off from your house, and by the time you got back to your house, it's just been the same 4 people for the entire journey. And the only thing you've done is just, all right, you played a game and you've been touching things in the game, and you have to trust us to keep it clean. It's kind of the only job we have to do. And I have, when we reopen, I'm extending the times between games to make sure that there's time to make sure that we can be thorough and make sure 100% that we've done everything within the room that's going to be touched. I'm going to, I think the email used to say, turn up 15 minutes before your game, briefing and all the rest of it. And then at the end, you'd sit down, you'd have your photo, we'd give you water, a wristband and all the rest. We're going to nip that up and say, right, turn up 5 minutes before your game. You will have already paid online, and you won't be hanging around in the lobby. You'll be going straight in the game. And at the end, we'll take your quick photograph and we'll say cheerio. It's a little bit less personal than it was before. But if I was a customer, I would think, I like that. I'll go and socialise where I decide I want to socialise, rather than in Escapology's beautiful lobby. So we are putting in a few measures. We already did put in those measures for the few days that we were allowed to kind of remain open. And those measures are going to be rolled out when it restarts. But we are very lucky that it's a private experience, and very lucky that really we're not exposing anybody to any risk whatsoever, I don't think. And I am the world's most paranoid man. I'm in day 39 of lockdown, and I've never been out. I've been out the house, but I've never, this is about as close as I've been to anyone. You know, so it's, but I do care about the fact that we need to be looking after people's health, and we're very lucky. I can't actually think of another form of entertainment that's safer. And if you've got one, then let me know, because I might even consider going to do it. But it's no, we are lucky, and I guess we've got our fingers crossed and hopeful that our potential, our customers recognise that. It'll be part of our marketing. You know, it's private. We'll look after you. But yeah, we're kind of hopeful that we'll get off to a reasonably decent start when we're all allowed to go back to work again.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear some of those measures that you've already started to kind of put into place, and you're, going to be looking at in the future when we can reopen. And a minute ago, you said something about, being able to support people when things get a little bumpy. Right. And I think we can all agree things are a little bumpy right now. So I'm curious, for all the places that are closed, all your employees that may be displaced, what are some of the things that you and Escapology are doing to kind of support people through this time to make sure that you're ready to go when you can open your doors again?
I mean, with my franchises, we've got like financial mechanisms that protect us, that protect the business. And one of them is like a minimum fee. So if they're not performing very well, we've got this minimum that we know we can guarantee we're going to get. And as soon as this came out, I said, I'm scrapping that. The minimum fees are off. Like, if you've got money coming through the door, then yes, I want my 6% of that money. We need it to run the business. But and that was met with, they were thrilled, like, oh, well, we have to, if they should, it's nothing, it's 6% and nothing. So you're not making anything, I'm not making anything either. And we've all been, very active on, like, we have our little private Facebook groups and the way that we communicate with all the franchises. And we've all been very proactive at looking after each other and helping each other to work out, the government support and all the rest of it. Because, like, if you look at me, my brother Steve, who you've met, he's English. Lloyd, who you might have met, he's English. We're like the Brits abroad here. Like, we think, whoa, and we keep hearing words we don't understand, like forgiving money. We call that, you write it off. Like, it's, so there's language issues, I think. And oddly enough, our franchises have built. It's like the tables have flipped. Some of them with a bit more experience of, like, we said, well, what do we do? What would you do if you were us? So we've got a great. It is. I always call it a family. When people sign, and I used to shake the hands. I don't know what I'm going to do in the future, but it's. I said, welcome to the family, and we are. You are our extended family now, and we're going to look after you, whatever come through thick and thin. But our family is now kind of helping us and telling us what to do, how to, furlough. I don't even know what that word was 3 weeks ago. Furlough. Now the whole world knows what furloughing your employees are. And so I'm getting help from my franchises. We're kind of all helping each other and all working out what the best protocols are, what we should be doing in order to kind of get through the other end. So there's that, and I've got, I've kept as many staff as I can, and we're kind of working proactively on things like how to run a game online, like a live game online. I've got a few of them sort of challenged with that. Got another. We tested it for the first time Friday. It went really well with that Cuban crisis I was telling you about earlier. We'll be doing it again tomorrow with a few new ideas. So it's just kind of trying to keep busy. But I also asked them, I said, look, I mean, I won't tell you how much we were taking January, February, but it was a lot. The business was going really well. And our margins were probably about, I don't know, 20% maybe. Something like that. Don't know. I was just getting excited. Just done all the accounts, all the projections. We're right on target January, right on target February, and then it just like went off a cliff. Like the income went to zero. Now, to make your costs, you can't get them to stop that quick. This is a runaway train. This is bigger than me and all my life savings and all the rest of it. Like a few months like that, that's it, game over. So we had to trim as much as we can. And one of those things, I kind of reached out to all my, like the staff I could keep, just tell me what you can live on. Tell me what you can live on until we get out the other end. And they're all fantastic. And they all came back with unbelievable, like, well, this is what I need. With this, I can eat, I can keep shelter. And that's kind of what they're on at the minute. And I said, when we get out the other side, then we'll start looking after you again. But it was nice. You know, I didn't say you're on this. I just said, do me a favor, come back. Wrote to them all individual, and not one of them came back and said, oh, I need what I've got. You know, I can't take any. They all compromised like you can't believe. And that's really reassuring to me, that there's that faith in what we're doing at the top, if you like. But obviously, we've got an obligation to fix that when we start, you know, when it all starts kicking off again. So it's complicated. It is really complicated. But I've been through some bumps in the road in my life, you know, back in the God knows, let's go back a lot, like late 80s. You know, I ran out my little business ventures I had back then. They taught me a hell of a lot of lessons that I've been able to use now. You've got to batten the hatches down really fast, take care of all the people you can take care of, and then just try and be as lean as you can till you come out the other side. But it's a very supportive family that we're in. And we will get out the other side because of it, you know. But everybody's had to help everybody else out, landlords, everybody. But everybody's come to the table, to be fair, and they've all supported what we're trying to do. Because I guess, you know, it's all about the long-term vision, and that maintains, that sticks firm, you know. So it's, but yeah, no, it's tough times, but we'll come out the other end, and it'll hopefully one day it'll all be forgotten.
What I really like kind of about what you just said about having that open communication with your employees and saying, you know, tell me what you need to live on, that you extended a dialogue. It wasn't a one-way conversation of just, you know, your salary is now X. It's, hey, let's work together to make it, you know, kind of a mutually beneficial decision, rather than what so many other companies are doing of just crossing things out, basically, and just cutting people because just because they're trying to cut costs. So it's less of a question, but more of just a we've had a lot of people go. Don't get me wrong. You know, like, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm the, you know, whatever. It's a lot of people. We had over 100 employees, and I've got no businesses open whatsoever. And if I'd kept them all, well, I could have looked after 100 people for probably 3 weeks, and then I wouldn't have been able to look after anyone. It would have been game over. You know, I'm not sure 3 weeks. I'm sure we could probably eke it out a bit more than that. You know, but they all know, like, we'll hopefully be getting them all back. And with the government, I mean, it does scare me with all what the government's been offering, because we put our name down for a PPP program or this, that, and the other, and then I'm being told, sorry, the money's run out. The money's run out. We look like we were, you know, that was us, you know. And I'm also told, oh, don't take any notice of that. They'll find more, and so it's so, you know, there have been casualties. Don't get me wrong. But they all know that we're doing our absolute best to make sure that they'll be looked after long term, and the big chunk of people I was managed to keep, they're all support. You know, they've all come back with great offers of support that have helped keep the business going. But it's tricky, it's complicated. But you've just got to keep your sights on the fact that you've got to come out the other end stronger. And during that tough process, you've got to look after as many people, franchises, suppliers as you can. You know, we paid up front one of our suppliers for a bunch of new Scooby-Doo games, and he hasn't got any money, you know, and I ain't got any games. And I said, well, just keep it, you know, and when it all comes back, hopefully I can give you the other half of what we owe you, and hopefully that other half is enough to finish the games off for me. But you can't, it's no time to be heavy-handed with anybody. You've got to treat every single case as a bit of an individual case and just deal with it as best you can.
Yeah, I think, Simon, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of in what I'm hearing you talk about is really compassion and empathy, because we are all going through this and we've all got our hardships, and, my hardship to pay a bill, is somebody else's hardship because they're not getting a bill, paid. So I think it's great that you're able to talk about, very openly sort of what you're doing and how that's affecting the company. So I am curious if we get back to escape rooms just for a second. Josh and I have experienced some escape rooms that are combined with other attractions, like a shooting gallery or, things like that. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on, having a kind of a standalone story escape room versus some of these other sort of conglomerations of different attractions that include escape room, and how that either helps or may hurt the experience.
A lot of our franchises are FECs, family entertainment centres. I didn't know what an FEC was when we started all this, but like a bowling centre that have all arcades and climbing ropes and go-karts and God knows what else. And they'll put in an Escapology facility like within their FEC, or like what you said, like multiple attractions in the same place. It's not. All I'm interested in is escape rooms. I want to be the best escape room business in the world. So it's simple as that. And VR. I've had let's do VR, let's do this, and franchises kind of occasionally pull me down a little bit of a, like an alley. And we were at our convention. Actually, not last year. It was the year before, because I'm VR. Oh, let's do VR. We've got the website that can bring the people in. We've got space to do it. And I said, I'll tell you what, so why don't we have a vote? I said, we aren't Disney. I haven't got like departments everywhere. You've kind of got me, if you like, at the top of the game creating team with my daughter Poppy, and then this massive creative support people underneath us. I said, where do you want my attention to be? I said, because I can either continue to create what I think is the best escape room business in the world, or we can diverse slightly and I can look at VR and I can look at something else. I said, but we've only got so much resource. What do you want us to do? And it was a bit like, anyway, they decided not to do the VR thing because I think it's a specialist thing. And also there's some big brand names who are already doing it. And it's just not what we know. We're really good at what we do. So we kind of got to stick to what we do. So as far as the FECs are concerned and the places where we're one of many attractions, I don't really know. I know how our bit does because they report that to me and the team as to how the Escapology bit does. And I actually know that it performs really, really well compared to a lot of the other things that happen within those multi-attraction locations. But it's not something that's on my radar. Like even food and beverage, I don't like that. I've got my brother and my other partner like, why don't we do drinks and enough on my plate. I want to let's just do this. It's making decent money, or it was until 3 weeks ago, and it's growing, and we're supporting our franchises and all the rest of it. It's and everybody's enjoying it, and why ruin it? So I kind of think my view is just to focus on what we're good at and stick to what we're good at. And if people want to put it in as part of another experience, I kind of don't see. I think once you've opened the door and you're inside that escape room environment, I can't see how you're going to blend that with anything other than that escape room environment. Or you might be able to put a little VR headset on for a couple of seconds and have a little bit of a VR element to it, or a bit of a what's the other reality, another reality where you hold your iPad and something else. I don't mind little bits like that, but to me, it's all about being with your family and your friends and interacting together, and you're in that closed environment that's just an escape room. So it's just not on my agenda. It's on a lot of my FEC's agenda. How does it all blend in? But we just try and keep it separate.
Well, I think that's a really good lesson too, that you don't necessarily need to chase something because it's the shiny new cool thing, rather than what you said of just, hey, we're just going to focus at what we do at, and then that's only going to strengthen how good you are at doing it, because you've got that very laser focused mission, basically. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, but you've got to have faith in the escape room business itself, because as a family, we really genuinely enjoy going out and playing escape rooms. And it's kind of not me. If I go back like 7 or 8 years ago, I can't imagine how it would ever have gotten on my radar. But you really do have to interact with your family, you know, whoever it is that you've turned up with. So you've got to have faith in escape rooms as a long-term concept, to think the way that I do, that we want to be the best escape room business in the world. But I promise you, it's here. Like I can't. Nobody can say forever. I mean, forever soon came to a halt, didn't it? 4 weeks ago. But it's as long as the world returns to normal, it's going to be a long time before escape rooms aren't fun. It's not to say that there hasn't been quite a clean out over the last few years of some poorer experiences. As we've, you know, if I look at my first game, Arizona Shootout, the first time I built it, the bills were less than $1,000. But the concept was still good. We created the videos. That wasn't $1,000. That was a little bit more investment with them. But what I actually physically put in the room was less than $1,000. And we've had like hundreds of thousands of people played. Well, I don't know exactly. Well, we've had over 1.5 million people play our game. So it'll be like over 100,000 people will have played that game. And the latest one, then tell you how much it is. But, you know, you can add a couple of extra knots onto the top of that. You know, you spend easily $100,000 just developing them these days. It's fundamentally the same thing. But the $1,000 games, they're getting closed down. People that have just got those poorer experiences, and they haven't got that whole customer experience and everything else and the brand and blah, blah, blah. But the good games, the good companies are thriving. There's not many. Well, there are. We're spoiled, aren't we? We're in Orlando. We're in Vegas, and there's some good companies in both of those towns, and they'll be fine. You know, as long as they kind of keep reinventing themselves, they'll be absolutely fine. But there will be I think a lot of people have drawn analogies to Laser Quest. You know, when it first came out, shooting each other with lasers. There was like hundreds of companies, and now there's a few, you know, but there's a few doing really, really well. You just have to go to IAPA and see them. You know, they're doing really, really well. And we just want to be one of them. We want to be one of the escape room companies that are doing really, really well in 10 years' time. So that you've got to keep your focus in escape rooms if that's what you want to achieve, rather than getting on your high horse and starting developing a million other ideas because this one's a good one. You know, stick with a good one and just keep making it better and better.
Yeah, like Josh said, I think that's a great lesson. And Simon, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate your time, and learned a lot about escape rooms. I've done a couple of them and always enjoy them. But now I have a deeper appreciation for what goes into them. So thank you so much for that. If people want to know a little bit more about Escapology, especially as we get to ramp up and reopen at some point, where would you send them?
Escapology.com, and then work out what you think my email is. My name's Simon and the company's called Escapology. So if you just put an @ and a .com on, you'll find me. So there's one way. I'm in the website, escapology.com. I'll tell you more about the games and everything else. But if anybody wants to drop me a note, I've got a bit of time on my hands to reply to them at the minute. So yeah, feel free, and I can point them in any direction for any member of the team if they want. But either the website or simon@escapology.com, that's fine.
Well, we appreciate your time today. Like Matt said, this has been a very fascinating conversation, and we're really glad that we had the opportunity to speak with you. So we hope that you stay safe and stay well, and we hope to be able to get out to the nearest escape room in the future once all this is behind us. And to everyone out there listening, thanks for being Attraction Pros.
Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Attraction Pros podcast.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to drop us a line on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and make sure to follow us on all the social channels.
And make sure you've subscribed to the show so you can get the latest episodes every single week. Also, if you're new to the show, be sure to check out all the great episodes and guests we've featured in the past.
And if you want to learn more about Matt and Josh and check out the best articles for you to operate your attraction most successfully, be sure to visit us at attractionpros.com.